with your host, Vocab Malone.
Welcome to Backpack Radio. This is your host, Vocab Malone. It's a little bit after 8 o'clock East Coast time. You know, I'm chilling in Phoenix, Arizona. But I make accommodations for my special guest. The special guest tonight on Backpack Radio Live is David Wood of Act 17 Apologetics. And hopefully you guys know it's a Tuesday. The date is October 16th, 2018. And we are going to be discussing the Gosnell movie, trial, case, Gosnell himself. But really, the catalyst for this discussion on Backpack Radio Live tonight is the Gosnell movie. It actually cracked the top 10. Amazing. Cracked the top 10 over the weekend. And we realize this is a key apologetic issue. Very culturally relevant. Very morally relevant. So we're going to be discussing that tonight. Myself and David Wood. Welcome to Backpack Radio Live. My main man, David Wood. What up, man?
How you doing, Vocab?
I'm doing okay. I'm very glad to have you on this program as an Apologetic Avenger and a member of Act 17 Apologetics. Where can people find your stuff, and tell people about the main area of your ministry, David?
Yeah, they can go to YouTube. Oh, by the way, you got a big... Oh, okay, you took that picture off, I see.
Yeah. It was up there for a second in the way.
Yeah. People can find me on YouTube. Just type in David Wood, and you'll get a bunch of angry stuff, but you'll also get some stuff by me. And some angry stuff by me.
Yeah. David does a lot of stuff on Islam and atheism, to those of you who don't know. And it's always great to have him on. And we've done a lot of crazy stuff. And David, before we get rolling, that Facebook version, the special edition of Islamicize Me, is almost done. We're talking 32 episodes that have been specialized. And so...
Yeah, the special version.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna put that out. I think on my Facebook channel. I think that's where we're going with it. And I'm thinking maybe November, December. I'll keep you posted, but it's gonna be exciting because it's Islamicize Me never hit Facebook. Anyways, that's
that's something. That's something that kind of ties in with this subject that you might want to talk about later. Namely, you could take something like from the Muslim sources that talks about like breastfeeding adults or something like that, and you read it and you say, "Oh, that's weird," but you never really get your mind around it until you see what it would actually look like. And now the image is in your head. But that's similar to something like this Gosnell movie, right? Where you read about how bad this was, and you read about what his clinic was like and how disgusting it was and the stuff he was doing, and it's horrifying. But then actually seeing it and actually seeing what it looked like, and even seeing that they actually have video footage from that the cops recorded when they're walking in there, and actually seeing it, then it's actually seared in your mind in a different way. So,
yeah, this movie. So let's get right into it. We're going to be discussing the Gosnell movie. There will be spoilers because the case is already a public case, and so this information is already out there. But there will be spoilers. Really, nothing's going to replace seeing the movie. So any spoilers we give, it's still going to have a powerful impact on you. But let's just get right into it. First, let's talk about, you talked about seeing it. Let's talk about the visual aspect of the movie. Let's talk about the quality aspect of the movie, the art direction, all that kind of stuff. What's your overall takeaway, just strictly looking at this Gosnell film, which just came out last week, as far as from an artistic merit? What's your perspective on that, David?
Well, I mean, for people who haven't seen it yet, it's kind of like an long episode of Law and Order, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
You've got the police out doing their job, and you've got the the prosecutors doing their job, and then so it was well done. It was it's not like Avengers or something like that, but I don't think it needed to be, right?
Right.
So I thought it was well done, and I thought the budget was appropriate. They obviously could have, they could have done a lot more with it, right? I mean, if you had like a $100 million budget or something like that, but doesn't seem like the kind of movie where you would need that sort of thing.
Right. The budget itself is a very interesting story. So they started off, the filmmakers, it's an Irish couple, working to get this movie funded on Kickstarter. And Kickstarter kicked them right off. And so they went to Indiegogo, and I think raised more money for an independent film than they set some records or something. And I know it's the #1 independent film of the last weekend. You know, I talk about top 10. That's just all movies, including Venom, you know, all those movies. But they raised a lot of money. It's very significant. But, you know, not only did they have problems with the fundraising side, then Facebook and NPR wouldn't let them get ads to even advertise the film. I mean, what have you heard about that sort of, you know, benign censorship type thing?
Well, it's amazing because the movie itself draws attention to that kind of thing of, you know, politicians and the media not wanting to touch anything having to do with abortion. When, you know, the movie is about a serial killer, right?
Yeah,
that's what this guy was doing according to the law, right? Not, you know, according to the law in a state that allows abortion, this guy was a serial killer. He was killing kids after they were born, right? Yeah. That's why he's in prison for life right now. The baby would be born, and then he would kill the baby after the baby was born. Now,
real quick, let's tell everyone how. A key way he would do it was scissors to the back of the neck. He would literally just snip its neck.
Yeah.
So
and his lawyer actually argued that that's more humane than what they would do if you know, another doctor had botched when historically when doctors botch an abortion, the baby is somehow born, usually messed up. They'll just starve the baby to death, right? They'll put the baby in a corner and you know, with this little sign that says "Do not feed."
Yeah, they'll do things like put it in the, like where the soiled towels and things like that go, and just let it sit there in a basket until it dies. And that's what they'll do sometimes with a live birth. Now, there's been organizations that have been trying to get laws passed in different states that say if a baby is born live during an abortion, you need to take care of it. But believe it or not, there's actually politicians who vote against those laws. They'll vote against saying, "Hey, if there's a live birth, you need to take care of the baby." Which is really appalling. It's even more appalling than just the sheer fact of abortion. But yeah, it's interesting. The doctor, or the lawyer rather, that's the director, by the way. The actor who was the lawyer, I guess, is also the director of the movie. He did a great job portraying the lawyer, and he did a good job directing. But he made the point, well, hey, so he's snipping its neck after it's born. You guys just let it sit there. Isn't that more humane? That was a powerful, powerful scene. But we're going to get to that part about politicians being scared. But let's, real quick, what else about the artistic direction, or maybe the acting, script?
Well, I was drawing attention to the fact that what the movie is pointing out, namely how politicians and the media don't want to touch anything having to do with abortion. You see that even when they're trying to make a movie, right? They want to make a movie about it, and they want to raise funds, and then they say, no, you can't raise funds for a movie about the most notorious serial killer in American history, right? This guy's killed more living people in these kinds of killing than Jeffrey Dahmer or anyone else, John Wayne Gacy, and than any of these guys, right? So you'd think, I mean, no one complains when you make a movie about John Wayne Gacy. No one complains when you make a movie about Jeffrey Dahmer, but you say, hey, I want to draw attention to what happened here so that this sort of thing never happens again. But just because it involves abortion, they say, no, your funding has to be shut down. We're going to blacklist the movie. We're not going to allow you to advertise. We're not going to allow you to do any of that stuff. And I mean, that's really some sick stuff, right? In other words, if you are actually pro-choice, right? That's your position. You could be pro-choice and still say, I want this exposed so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again, so that this sort of thing never happens, so that people actually follow the law. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying we don't want you to talk about this. We don't want people to know about this. We don't want people to see what goes on in one of these places. And very, very disturbing for, I mean, if you're looking at the side that claims to be moral and claims to be only doing this to promote women's rights, well, you know, given the horrors that were going on there, if you really care about women, you should be doing everything you can to also make sure that this stuff never happens again. But they're not. They don't want to touch it. Sick stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not the case. You know, it's interesting. Some of the actors who were in the movie, I guess Dean Cain said he's pro-choice, but yet he's still involved with the movie. But if you read a lot of the reviews, which, you know, a lot of mainstream outlets don't want to even review the movie, you know, they they try to fight back on these little issues. Well, he's not the most notorious serial killer because actually he was only charged on this many, and they'll try to. It's really bizarre. I've read some of these interactions where they just say the movie's just a right wing, hate fest and all this kind of thing. But the movie is about something utterly shocking going on in Philadelphia, and he was allowed to writhe by the system because, exactly like you stated, politicians are scared. And interestingly, a Republican governor, Tom Ridge, who is George W.'s friend, was responsible in a lot of ways for allowing this to go on. He's a pro-choice Republican because he kind of had the Board of Health basically stay away from regulating the abortion clinics like they should be. It's like they're exempt from these things. We're talking horrible, horrible stuff. And when you get into the details of this, you have to abortion is murder. But to add on top of that, Gosnell actually got 30 years too for 12 drug-related charges. He was also running a pill mill out of this abortion war, and that's how it began. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually why police went to the clinic, right? The health department had been receiving complaints for years about how disgusting this place was, how cats were running around. It was infested with rodents. Girls were going there to get abortions and coming back with sexually transmitted diseases because dirty instruments were being used and they were sitting on a filthy, disgusting table. The dude was a total racist, right? He would send white girls to the upstairs room that was cleaner and minorities to a downstairs room that was more filthy. When he was asked about that, he would say, "Yeah, that's just the way
things are.
That's just the way life is." And so all this disgusting stuff is going on in this place, but the Department of Health never does anything about it because they don't want to be accused of trying to interfere with abortion. So this goes on. I think they went like 17 years without actually going and doing and checking on this place. And so police didn't go there until people are writing phony prescriptions there to get drugs. And so very wild stuff.
And it's just, imagine how they have the crisis pregnancy centers across the nation where if a family or say the woman is considering abortion, they can go and they get their options and they'll run free STD test for them and they'll tell them about the option of adoption and things like that. They give them a full range. They show them their baby. They'll give them the 3D and I think even now 4D, ultrasound, sonogram, all that kind of stuff. Imagine if one of those places had these kind of health violations, or if somehow people had died during some of the things they had done. Just imagine. But you have this, and the thing is, Gosnell is the worst that we ever know about. But if you look into this, women dying because of botched abortions and not meeting the standard medical practice regulations that they're supposed to, is actually not as rare as you might think as you look throughout American history since abortion was illegal with these abortion clinics. Now, I know that statement will, people, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but there's been other things that have happened, basically is what I'm saying. He's not the only doctor of his kind. He is in another level, but, man, I don't know. Okay, so.
No, think about it, right? If that clinic hadn't been putting out fake prescriptions to get people drugs and sell drugs, he'd still be doing it right now, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
The Department of Health wasn't going to touch it. Police weren't going to touch it. Prosecutors weren't going to touch it. No one was going to touch it. This would still be going on right now. So think about how many places something like this, might be going on. And so as far as people, you brought up people saying, well, he's not the most notorious serial killer. It was only this number of counts. They prosecuted him on what they could actually prove, right? Because if you're doing this, and he's been doing this since at least the 1970s. I don't know if he was doing it in the 60s, but he was doing it. It was like 72. They had that what they call the Mother's Day massacre, where they tried that method of abortion.
Just hold on, just that in and of itself. Did you hear they tried a new method where they put this metallic ball inside a metallic wheel inside the mother, and then it unfolds with spinning blades? Even the verbal descriptions of the things in this movie are just shocking. And that was a great scene when the defense attorney pulled out the instruments that they used during abortion. Just looking at the instruments alone is shocking. But go ahead. I don't want to get off track. There's just so much in this movie. Well, I think people need to see this movie.
Yeah, the idea is the prosecutors only prosecuted things that they could prove, right? Where they had eyewitnesses, and he would, he would have new nurses every couple of years, hired teenage nurses and stuff like that. So only the people who were willing to testify, and who could say, yes, here's how I knew that this baby was still alive, this baby was still moving, this baby was still breathing, this baby was this. So they only prosecuted the things that they could actually prove. So the assumption that he wasn't doing this for decades, and that there were all these others that couldn't be proven because you don't have a body, you don't have this sort of thing. That's just ridiculous, right? The idea is this guy had been doing this for decades. They can only prove a couple, but he'd been doing it for a long time.
So he was charged with 8 counts of murder, and this is pretty key: 24 felony counts of illegal abortions beyond the state's 24-week time limit. So even if a person thinks that they're sort of an open-minded pro-choice advocate and they hold to the law, that means what is an abortion under those rules? Clearly we don't agree with this, but under those rules, if it's past 24 weeks and he performs it, then what is it at that point? Well, even if people understand that as murder, if that's all they're understanding is murder, that's still quite a few. So this is serious, and to visually see it, and I think they did a great job. It wasn't grotesque. It was sort of like a horror thriller movie at certain points, but it wasn't done with visual graphic nature per se. It was almost done Hitchcockian, where they would tease something out, or they would show people's reaction to an image but not necessarily show the image. I think they did a very good job as far as that. It doesn't mean that it's easy to watch all the time, but I thought they did that tastefully and artfully.
Yeah, in case anyone is wondering, what you're going to see in terms of if you have a weak stomach and you're not sure you want to go see this because you're worried about what's going to be on there. The movie I think is PG-13, right? Yeah. So they're not showing aborted babies and things like that. They give you an idea that other people are seeing them, right? Mm-hmm. So the holds up a picture for the jury, and you see the jury's reaction. They're not actually showing the picture. They say if you want to actually see the picture that was taken, then you can go to their website and see it, but they're not actually showing that. So they're not. I mean, you see that the place is filthy. You see blood stains and so on, but they're not. Just so you know, they're not showing you abortions. They're not showing you aborted babies and stuff like that.
Now they do show the little baby feet in the jar. Which, by the way, this guy was keeping the baby's feet in jars with the names, and they did multiple interviews and try to figure out what was going on there. And even fellow abortionists were saying, "I don't know of any reason why you would keep." That's not standard practice to keep all the feet in the jar. It almost was like little trophies, but they show that.
Yeah, that's what it, and that's part of like the serial killer theme, because serial killers very often do that, right? They keep little mementos of things that they've done. He argued in response that you can keep a tissue sample. You can keep a tissue sample from an aborted baby. To identify through DNA later and so on, but they point out all you need is a little some hair or a piece of skin, something, right? You just need a little tiny tissue set. He's chopping off feet and keeping them in a cabinet of jars. They showed the actual picture at the end as well, the picture that real police took when they actually went into this place, and you saw from those pictures and video at the end that this movie is exactly what police were seeing.
Yeah, and if you go online and look further at the police images, you'll see further. The movie is really did a good job at portraying what they actually saw. By the way, hey, I see you guys. I saw a couple super chatters, Brian Weinberg, in the live chat, and we got a lot of people watching. That's great. Guys, grab this link and share this discussion, because usually on Backpack Radio I go an hour and a half. This show is going to be a little shorter, perhaps around an hour. So grab this link and share this right now, please, and make sure you hit the thumbs up button. It's a very important discussion, I think, as you can tell. There's one other time when they showed sort of the backs of some babies' heads, because what had happened was they had to determine if the babies were born alive or not. And because of the size of these babies that were found in the clinic, now, they're calling them different names than that, but we understand what they are. They would have had to have evacuated the brains out before they could be pulled out. And so there's a part in the movie. So if anyone didn't understand, they sucked your brains out, right? In order to get the baby, if the baby is
is sufficiently big as the baby would be after 24 weeks. And by the way, a little side note here. Gosnell, with the charges for performing abortions after that 24-week mark, what was going on there is according to the law, it's the physician who gets to make the judgment on how far along the woman is, right, or the girl is. So what Gosnell was doing is, girl's coming in, she's 8 months pregnant, but she wants an abortion. And if you gave him $1,200 to $3,000, he would say, "Okay, I'll just call it 24 weeks or 6 months, right?"
Yeah.
So I'll just say 24 weeks. That's my judgment, and then he would abort the baby. Problem is, by that time, the head is really big, and so without a woman a girl fully dilating and so on, as she would during a live birth, the head is very difficult to get out, and so during those kinds of abortions, they stick an instrument up in there into the baby's head and suck the brains out so that the head sort of collapses so that you can get the baby out. The thing was that's one of the ways that they could determine that certain babies were born live is their brains hadn't been sucked out. Right. So that was again, this goes along with they were only prosecuting for things they could actually prove, and so anyway, that was some of the ways that they could actually prove things.
I mean, this whole thing is, hopefully people can hear this and just realize the grisly nature of this all. But again, I want to reiterate, the movie itself, I would describe the movie as a life-changing movie. I would describe the movie as well done. Like, it's not a cheesy, lame-o thing. Like, movies that appeal to Christians that were made by, like, people of faith and a lot of times past, it's been few and far between that they were high quality because they had to play it really safe and all this kind of thing. This was the perfect kind of story for, first of all, I think a secular filmmaker should have been interested in this, but they clearly weren't. But this is the perfect kind of story for someone to pick up and do, and they did a great job because it has the all natural makings of drama just by what it is, and they just did a great job. The script was good. The acting was good. The way they set things up was done really well. It was just a great movie for what it was. And so you're gonna get truth, but it's not gonna be something that's gonna make your eyes roll. Now, that might be sometimes you want to just kind of do this, even if they're not. There was times where they weren't even showing anything, and I just did this just because I didn't. It's like I wanted to be shielded from it. But you still need to see this movie because this is unbelievable. And this is the next thing we need to talk about. This maybe let's start getting to our main points if you're ready to, David. The blackout on this for the longest time. Now there's been some media that happened since then, but let me explain what I'm saying. The actual court case, and I think this is one of the points we wanted to make. Number one, you wanted to make the point that media was scared to touch this. Can you talk about that famous picture that kind of changed everything of the press section that was just blank and empty during the court trial? Maybe that's a good place to start with our main points as we transition from the kind of film review to some takeaways from this. The media was scared to touch this, huh, David?
Oh yeah, and the prosecutors were worried, but when the trial was about to start, they were worried that this is going to be a media circus, and hey, everyone who's walking up in here, the media is just going to be up in your face. Yeah. They get there and there's no one, right? No one, no network showed up, and so you've got this guy who's on trial for murdering, and I'm not saying that in terms of abortion. He's according to the law, he is murdering multiple babies, and they don't want to touch it, right? They don't want to touch it. They'll jump all over, someone saying something stupid or a Kardashian doing something. Right. They're all over it. But you've got a guy who's murdering babies, and they don't want to go. They don't want to go near it. And it was only after they were kind of shamed, right, into actually reporting on it, that the media started getting on the story, right? And they were shamed by people sharing it online. Where's the media? Where's the media? Look at what's going on here. Where's the media? And it sort of spread that way. And eventually a newspaper called this out, that this guy's a massive serial killer. Why is no one reporting on this? That's when the media actually started showing up. But it's kind of all the way up to the top, where the governor didn't want anyone touching anything to do with this abortion clinic. The Department of Health didn't want to go anywhere near, even though they're receiving multiple complaints. They don't want to touch this issue. Police, prosecutors, no one wanted to deal with this. They were only interested in dealing with it because of illegal drug prescriptions, right? That's the only reason anyone was willing to ever come near this sort of thing. And as they pointed out, a nail salon that had anything remotely resembling these kinds of health code violations would have been checked regularly. And even nail salons, you have to check them once per year. This place hadn't been checked in 17 years because no one wanted to get involved. And then during the trial, when this is all exposed, no one wants to touch it until they're shamed into having to deal with it. And now that the movie's out, still a media blackout. They don't want to touch anything to do with this topic, and this is just horrifying.
Yeah, it's really just unbelievable. You just can't believe that it'd be this way. You know, you have these where the media kind of prides itself in hard-hitting investigative journalism, and especially like they love there was the movie a couple years ago when they exposed the horrific stuff going on over there in the Boston diocese. Whatever, with all the sexual molestation and cover-up, and a movie came out about it, and they did the same thing. The media loves to talk about what they did, Nixon and Watergate, that hard-hitting. But when it comes to stuff like this, they're a no-show. And it was that picture. Someone snuck a picture of the press, the section of the courtroom that was for the press, and it was empty. And they put that picture out there. And I looked it up. There's a blogger character. She's a composite character, actually, of two different people. Her name is actually a play on the actual real people's names. I think it was a male and a female who weren't necessarily bloggers, but kind of were smaller kind of journalistic outlets who did make this go viral, where then all of a sudden the media finally showed up. And you've got the cops investigating this thing who described it as a, quote, house of horrors. The actual abortion clinic there in West Philly described it as a house of horrors, and yet you had this total ignoring until they were shamed into paying attention. And I'm glad they did pay attention. So that was two things you wanted to bring out, that the politicians were scared, and the media is scared.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of, there's also a parallel here. Namely, you see this sort of thing happening elsewhere, very, very similarly. We talk about Islam occasionally in the UK, and this is what I was thinking about when I was watching the movie. In the UK, for decades now, they've been having these situations where these grooming gangs, made up usually entirely of Muslims, are grooming young girls. In other words, they show up to 11 or 12-year-old girl who's walking home from school or something like this, and they start talking to her, and she starts getting attention, and she becomes buddies with them. But their real intent is to start gang raping her on a regular basis and to pimp her out. And this is going on for decades in the UK, and this is brought to police and counselors and so on over and over and over and over again, and no one wanted to touch it, because if they start going out saying, hey, there's this grooming gang made up of Pakistanis, and we're going to go after them because they're gang raping these little girls, they would be called Islamophobic or anti-Muslim or anti-immigrant or something like that.
Right.
So they ignored it year after year, so that thousands and thousands of young girls are pimped out, gang raped, anything you can imagine, their entire lives completely destroyed. And the media and politicians wouldn't touch it until, once again, they got shamed into not bringing this up, right? Once these stories start becoming public online, they wouldn't touch it until they were shamed into discussing it. But I mean, think about that. When you're so worried about not being called a name, you're so worried about not being called anti-Muslim or anti-immigrant or something like that, that you'll say, hey, all these 1,400 girls in our town who are being gang raped and pimped out by these grooming gangs, 11, 12, 13-year-old girls, I can't do anything about that because I might get called names, right? And that's like the worst thing I can imagine in our culture, is being called a name. And so I just have to look the other way and pretend this is not happening. and you find the exact same thing. This guy is cutting little babies' spinal cords with a pair of scissors after they've been born. No one wants to go near it. They still don't want this announced because, hey, if you start talking about this, well, you might be called anti-abortion or something like that. And you don't want to be called pro-life. You don't want to be called anti-abortion. And so media blackout. And this is something to pay attention to, right? Like, I understand, being worried about being called a name and so on, but you can't let that stop you from protecting people, right? You can't let your feelings about abortion stop you from protecting babies who are being born, right? You can't say, oh, I don't want to be called a name, therefore this baby who's having its spinal cords sliced with a pair of scissors, I just need to look the other way. Or this 11-year-old girl is being gang raped on a daily basis, but I can't say anything because I don't want to be called a name. When you've become that politically correct, you are insane, and you have no basis holding any position of authority in the government or in the media.
As we transition, you wanted to make those 2 points: politicians scared to touch abortion, media scared to touch abortion. I have 2 points I want to bring out as well. But we got a couple people I do need to give accolades to in the super chat. We got Gwendolyn. She's always faithful. Thank you. By the way, thank you to the Mod Squad and the social media team for the Street Apologist ministry there. We got Rox, and we got Warrior Woman, and we got Carm, and we also got a Rox B, Lily. Anyway, shout out to all y'all. And I got a question I want to ask from another super chatter. It's from Michelle Marie. She asked you specifically, David, how did this movie affect you emotionally?
Well, for some reason, everyone is terribly concerned about my emotional reactions to things. But no, just clarify, I don't have an emotional reaction to things like this. But with that said, I know when something is unjust, right? I know when here's someone created in the image of God, who's born into this world, who more than anyone else should be protected, right? Who deserves protection more than a newborn baby, right? The baby deserves far more protection than someone who's being, teased in college because of, some whatever, right? And yet the baby has no protection unless police are reluctantly shamed into doing something about it. I can recognize the injustice of things like, now my wife was beside me there. She's crying her eyeballs out, just so you know.
Yeah, I actually called you guys when you're in the car on the way to see the movie. Yeah. And by the way, David, thank you for bringing this movie to my attention. I mean, I'm pretty much, cued into these things. I actually did not know about this movie. And it's got a smaller release breadth, but it does have a general distribution. Like in a lot of major cities you can go, and I found it was playing in like 5 or 6 theaters around in the Phoenix area. So thank you for making me aware of it, number one. And yeah, I remember talking to Marie on the way there. I said, is this a date night? Anyways, so she did have an emotional reaction to it though.
Oh yeah. Any normal person who's functioning normally should have a normal emotional reaction to this sort of thing, because if anything in the world that could go wrong is going to make you cry, it should be a newborn baby who we've got some experts over here on the side. Rabbit Wolf was saying that baby. So these are people who are familiar with newborns. Said that baby was at least 33 weeks old, and then Loris K said, I worked with preemies for years, and that baby was closer to 36 or 37 weeks. So,
hold on.
You're talking
about baby A? Are you talking about baby A?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're talking a baby who is completely full term. This is a completely full term baby, and even the nurses there were horrified. We're horrified that that someone would kill this baby. That's why they took the picture. That's why one of them took the picture.
And that's the key one is baby A. At the end of the movie, they say you can see the picture of baby A at this website, and you go to the Gosnellmovie.com website, and it's there. You have to click through it several times to find it, but it is there, so they make it available for you.
Yeah, and so that's something that any normally functioning human being should have an emotional reaction to. For those who have never seen me before, I'm a diagnosed psychopath, so I don't have normal emotional reactions to things. But for some reason, people don't understand what a psychopath is, right? They say, but David, you do this nice thing or you do that. Guys, a psychopath can be the nicest person in the world towards you. He can be the nicest person you've ever met in your life. He's just doing it for other reasons other than feeling compassion and things like that.
By the way, guys, David is not the nicest person in the
yeah,
world.
I'm not. I'm just saying, a psychopath could be. But by the way, on a kind of side note here, even when I was growing up and I was an atheist and just wanted, the world to end in a bloodbath caused by me, I was still then pro-life, and it was mainly because the baby hasn't done anything, right? Human beings, like full-grown human beings, like disgusted me. They're all stupid. They're saying stupid things, and they for some reason they just fully grown human beings disgusted me. And so the idea that a fully grown human being was going to kill a baby who hadn't done anything, I thought that was repulsive. The same thing with animals. Lots of psychopaths like torture animals and stuff like that because they don't have any reaction to doing that sort of thing. My interactions of that sort were very limited, much more limited than most psychopaths.
That's an interesting point. I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Okay, go ahead.
I was just saying I didn't have anywhere near the normal interactions with animals of like these guys torturing animals and stuff, because I thought of animals as innocent, babies as innocent, fully grown human beings as these
right.
disgusting things that need to be killed and eradicated and stuff. So anyway, the point was even someone who's messed up can see, hey, there's something wrong here.
You would hope so. And that was an interesting point in the movie. Apparently this guy had a rare breed of turtles there in the office.
Yeah.
And he was really concerned that the turtles would get proper care and treatment. These turtles. I mean, just...
Yeah, baby born, snip its neck. Turtle, hey, you got to take care of my turtles.
Yeah.
And by the way, guys, that was real life. This guy, they catch him. He's been killing babies, both in the womb and outside the womb, for decades, and he starts panicking about protecting his turtles.
Yeah,
when they
you know what else? This is interesting. Speaking of like psycho, sociopath, whatever. When they would show him while the cops were, investigating his house, when they would show him doing things like playing the piano, I thought, maybe that's like some kind of artistic touch. Maybe like they're portraying him as this aloof kind of weird, But then I found out, no, he was actually, while the cops were there, was sitting down playing classical piano. I mean, that's another thing. I haven't heard much about people saying the actor. By the way, the actor, the guy who played Gosnell from the old school, he used to be on Good Times.
Yep.
And so
he worked in that diner, right? Or that it was Rob. He was.
I forget what he was, but I know. I mean, he's from Good Times. I thought he did a great job. He portrayed this kind of aloof, benign, kind of figure with his little twitch. I thought he just nailed the Gosnell character. I thought he did he played it just right. Like, this movie was really well done. Everyone hit their roles excellently, and the way he did this Gosnell character was really just flawless and excellent. And
yeah, really. I mean, it's the guy is super creepy, especially when he's when he's being caught on something. But at the same time, you can see why he would get away with it for years, right? He's smiling and calm, and
yeah, he's like kind of nonchalant. The whole thing's very nonchalant affair.
You can see why you wouldn't think this guy is. You're not thinking of this guy, snipping babies, spinal cords and stuff.
I also looked up even the jokes he made. You remember when there was a big baby, and he said, "This baby's big enough to walk to the bus stop." I looked it up. That was a paraphrase of jokes he really would make about these big babies before he would murder them. He would say that was actually one of his sort of, I guess, standard jokes. I mean, we're just, and we haven't even got, David, to the women who died because of his negligence, the mothers who were also, he got charged with, I think it was manslaughter, some kind of charge, 3rd degree, some kind of murder charge for one of the mothers as well. And let me get to my points on these two things. One is that this movie was excellent at exposing the utter immorality of abortion, period. So yes, there's a special case, but I thought they did a fantastic job of artfully and very almost clever exposing how utterly immoral, wicked, evil abortion is in of itself. And probably the most powerful point to this, and maybe David, you kind of have this really good memory for visual images and movies and stuff. Can you give your recollection of the part where the defense attorney is cross-examining that other abortionist doctor? Because the point the defense attorney was trying to make there was what Gosnell did is not really that abnormal for standard abortion practice. Could you talk a little about that? Because I thought that was one of the best parts where this movie exposed the utter immorality of abortion.
Yeah, so a defense attorney, his job is to get his client off, right? That his job is to get his client found not guilty. And so he found it perfectly acceptable to have another abortion doctor talk about how horrible just abortion is, right? The things they do, and what would happen if a baby is actually alive when born, so that his client didn't look as bad by comparison, right? Because you hear about all this horrible stuff that Gosnell is doing, and so the defense attorney's point is, well, abortion is just like that, and in a strange way, my client is more humane because another abortion doctor would just let the baby starve to death, maybe take days, whereas my client just snips their neck. Sounds like it's more humane. But yeah, they actually went through the process of what an abortion is like. Just words, just so everyone knows, they're not showing an abortion on the screen, but they have an abortion doctor.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish. I just want to make sure I don't forget this. Go ahead.
Oh, so they have an abortion doctor explain what it's like, explain what an abortion is like, and what they do to get that baby out of there. And then
That's it. Can I remember where you are? That's where I wanted to. That specific part is what I wanted to make sure I said for everyone to know how this exposes the utter immorality, because they were talking about with larger babies, and he was asking the doctor about the fact that you have to suck out the brains to get these babies out, and basically, collapse the skull and all this, and the defense attorney was playing it real cool, where he was showing so you do this in the womb a couple minutes before, and Gosnell does it out of the womb a couple seconds after. What's really the difference? I felt like that's what he was getting at, and I thought the movie did a great job portraying that point, as well as.
That was the defense. That was the main approach of the defense. The main strategy was, yes, here's how you do things for your very expensive abortions in your super fancy clinic out in the suburbs. But here in the inner city, where we're understaffed and we're dealing with poor, very poor girls, yeah, we cut corners sometimes. But it's no worse. It's what we're doing is no worse than what you're doing.
Yeah, they tried to portray him as like a hero of the poor who was helping people who can't afford abortions. But do you remember that case where he began to induce the abortion, and once the mother asked him, "What do you do with the babies when they're after the abortion?" and Gosnell said to the mother, "We burn them." Remember, she said, I want to stop. I don't want to do this. He tried to pressure her to still go through with the abortion. She ended up. And one thing he said was, "You're not going to get your." Because I looked at the full what really happened. He said to her in real life, I don't think this is the movie, "You're not going to get your money back. Remember that." What were you going to say though?
Oh yeah, I mean that was there were a couple really powerful takeaways and scenes from the movie, but that was one of them. That this girl changes her mind about an abortion. And he would tell these girls, "No, it's too late. We've already started." When it wasn't too late, right? He just doesn't want the girls to go out and have their babies. And this girl actually went out and had her daughter, and her daughter is probably 8 or 10 years old as of today.
Yeah. And David, I looked that up, and they were saying when they did the grand jury Now, grand juries are supposed to be impartial, but when they interviewed that particular mother, and they asked her this question, where is your baby now, or what's happening with your child now? And the mother answered and said she starts kindergarten today. They said the grand jury, they said this doesn't ever happen, spontaneously broke out into applause because it was just they had only heard bad things this whole time. And remember, my understanding from what I heard is that the jury was all pro-choice. I think that was one of the things that they ended up having an all pro-choice jury, and yet they still, still convicted and all this. But that was just, again, just powerful, and it shows you. And what about this, David? Remember when he was one last point on the utter immorality of abortion? Remember when he was showing the long needle, and he brought up the ultrasound? This is the defense attorney, and he showed how you stab it into the baby's heart, and you have to get it just right. Do you remember all that? How did that strike you?
Yeah. No, all of that was very well done. Apparently, they're using transcripts from the trial to make this movie. So this is how they actually rolled at that trial. I thought the most powerful moment was when they went first person from the baby's perspective. Remember that?
When was this? I don't think I remember that.
What did you go out for popcorn, you sicko?
Well, my child did need to use. I took my kids, and they did need to use the restroom at a certain point. Yes. There's a scene. Hey, you took your kid. What are you talking about? But go ahead.
My kid's 15 years old. Come on. So there's a scene. There's a scene where. Oh, by the way, I would take all my kids. I'm just talking about. I'm just talking about you thinking about popcorn and getting up for popcorn. That's horrifying.
Right.
But no, there's a scene where it has baby A being born. And then it goes to baby A's perspective. So newborns can't see very well. Everything is like dark and foggy. They can't see colors very well. But they actually did the camera like that, right? Like this baby's kind of looking up and seeing Gosnell and the nurse there, but very, very like in a haze and a fog. And the baby hears Gosnell saying that, he has to die and stuff. And then all of a sudden, the baby's head turns to the side because Gosnell is turning the baby's head to the side. And then, boom, completely dark. And they just leave it. They just leave it dark for like 5 seconds. And so if you missed that, man, then... I
actually did miss that. I didn't see that. That must have been the one time I had to step out. Oh, my goodness.
You need to go back and watch it just for that scene. Because that's actually seeing what it would be like to be a baby and be born and then have someone, snip your spinal cord.
Wow. That is powerful. And that's the last point I wanted to make, is this movie did an excellent job at showing the power of images. The power of images. Actually showing what is really happening. Because everything gets reduced to a euphemism when it comes to this discussion. We talk about reproductive rights, which really means unfettered abortion access. We talk about mother's right to choose what. We talk about pro-choice. We talk about the product of conception. Emptying the uterus of the product of conception. This is real verbiage, by the way, that's used by the other side. Everything is this, and no one shows a baby. No one shows what the size. No one shows the instruments. No one shows any of that. Everything's these euphemistic kind of, but the power of images in the abortion debate, I think this was a powerful reminder of it. And then, it's a controversial topic, but I've done some pro-life work, and sometimes I've worked with people who I think are pretty revolutionary in showing the images at the right time in the right place, but not just keeping it sealed off to where people have to deal with the reality of what abortion really is. And I think even though the movie wasn't showing the images really itself, it did a great job of showing you people's reaction to these images. And so, again, I reiterate, it showed the power of images itself. I think it makes a big difference when you see, here's what we're really talking about. Here's what we're really talking about. But, David, one person, this is sort of a kind of dangling thread now. One person said, talk about Gosnell's basement. I don't know why they wanted to. Do you remember that scene with Gosnell's basement?
Yeah, and this was actually true too. They showed a picture of his nasty flea-infested basement. Now, lots of people who have pets have fleas and so on, but the basement was apparently just swimming in them so much that it killed a cat, right? The fleas just sucked all the blood out of a cat who walked down there. So that's how bad the flea infestation was in Gosnell's basement. But
because they were down there looking for files, because at a certain point, Gosnell must have, according to the way the movie portrays it, knew something was up because he was moving files around. Mm-hmm. But, speaking of the files, do you remember when they would open up the refrigerator and there was just baby parts stuffed in the refrigerator, and they were in like jug bottles and trash bags and
milk cartons, and they showed a picture at the end where it was like these sort of waste bags, and one was in like a juice container. So the idea is, hey, why waste one of these good bags to stuff this dead baby in when I've got a milk carton here. I can just shove the baby in this milk carton, seal it up, and worry about disposing of it, disposing of the body later. And that's really, as far as how the movie dealt with abortion, because the movie is against Gosnell and serial killing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. There's no overt condemnation of abortion in the film. It's more done, like, as you're pointing out, through images, right? You see these bags of dead babies all over the place, and then you see the woman who stopped her abortion show up with her girl who's about to go to school, right? You see, oh, that's what happens if you don't have an abortion. Mm-hmm. Here's what happens if you have an abortion. And, how that doesn't stick in someone's head that, hey, I'm all worried because, it might be hard to raise my daughter. Guess what? It was hard for that woman to raise her baby. It's worth it, right? It's worth it. Having a daughter and watching your daughter take her first steps, and watching your daughter go to school and grow up and get married. That sort of thing is that's worth it. It's worth you taking some time out of your schedule. You know what I mean? Or your career being interrupted. At the end of your life, there aren't a few things. There are only a few things that really matter. But at the end of your life, I can guarantee you, your family is going to matter to you more than your career did. Right? That's a fact. Right? You're not going to be if you're on your deathbed and you're surrounded by your family, that is going to be more important than I really love this career that I retired from 30 years ago. Just fact.
Yeah, the children are a blessing, and I don't talk about this all the time, but this is probably a good place to say it. I've been involved with the pro-life sort of activism at various points. A lot of times I would rap at like their events they would do here in Arizona, like at Arizona State and stuff like that. Like they would, hey, come do some poems, some raps that have a pro-life message and stuff. And I wasn't the only one. There's a number of us that have done this stuff, and that was one way I was able to get involved. I've done some online debates, both through radio and the written word, with pro-choice advocates and whatnot. And also I've been able to be blessed to be involved with foster care and adoption. And children are a blessing. These children that end up in the foster care system, praise God that they're alive. Praise God that they're still alive, and so I'm glad for that. Anyways, David, final thoughts before we close out here. Final thoughts of what you want to say as far as maybe I see a lot of people saying, "Hey, I want to see this movie now." And I see some people who did see it. I'm glad. That's really, we want to talk about this. It's a historic case, but we also do want people to see this movie. And so I hope that people can see it.
Yeah, and by the way, that's part of the reason for the media not even talking about it, right? Because there are lots of people who just don't know the movie's out there. And if you write a review of it in the newspaper, even if you're condemning it and saying, oh, this is just right-wing nonsense, when it's clearly not, people are going to find out about it. People might watch it. People might start rethinking their positions, and you don't want that. But as far as this, going back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, and I'm saying this because my mom got pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. And her older sister had just had an abortion about a year earlier, and my mom also had an abortion after me. The only reason I didn't get aborted was my dad stepped in there, went to my mom's family right after he found out my mom was pregnant, went to her family, so my grandma and grandpa, and said, "Hey, don't worry, I'm gonna do the right thing. I'm gonna marry your daughter. I'm going to take care of this baby." And that's the reason I didn't get aborted. Now, things didn't work out between my mom and dad, but I mean, I was that close right there. And my aunt, so my mom's sister, had a baby born after me, but out of that time frame, there were 5 pregnancies, and two of us weren't aborted. So we had good chances of being aborted. So and Vocab, you've adopted, you've got 3 adopted sons. So these are issues that affect lots of people, not just people who are having abortions, but the kids. And I would just say to anyone who might be watching, who might be pro-choice, or especially if you're actually ever thinking about having an abortion, whatever it is in society that has convinced you that your unborn child is less important than anything else that might be going on in your life, that is nonsense. That is absolute nonsense. You've been brainwashed. You've been brainwashed if somehow you think this job or having fun or this other, whatever else it might be, right, is more important than the baby that is within me right now. Don't ever think that. If you have a baby, you take care of that baby, and that's not really the point of the movie. It's a movie about a serial killer, but you can gather that just even if you don't even need the movie. If you just read through what actually happens in some of these clinics and the people who change their minds, you should be able to walk away with that there's something out of whack in our thinking. Something has gone wrong in our thinking when certainly one of the most important things in life we relegate to secondary or tertiary importance of things that and the things that are most important to us are things that in the long run don't really matter. Right. So yeah, we got some things reversed.
For a few seconds, it looks like it was saying while we were live the video was unavailable. I refreshed and I saw it was available. So guys, we're close towards the end, but refresh, you should be able to see it again. Everyone, let me know what's going on as far as that. It looks.
I've actually got it in front of me. It looked fine. So
okay, yeah, it did go out for a second though. I saw some people mention it. The video did disappear, and I didn't have any problem with my internet. My internet's fine, so something was on the other end. But we will sometimes do a freestyle if we have over 100 viewers. We got to about 87.
We're not doing a freestyle on Gosnell and abortion, sick person.
We don't have to freestyle about Gosnell, although I could. I could freestyle about a Gosnell, by the way. But you're here with a beatboxer, so if we got over 100 viewers, I would do it.
I'll go back on a different topic, man. You can't close on a lighthearted note on something that's so dark. You sick person. I'm a psychopath, and you're sounding sick to me, dude.
Or if we get over 50 in the super chat, we'll freestyle as well. But we didn't have that today. So it's all good. I'm glad that we had so many people watching, and I'm glad I've seen some great comments here. It looks like people are inspired to see this. See it now. So don't wait, I'll see it a month from now. No, you got to go out. You got to see it now because that's when the first couple weeks, especially that first weekend, are very important to the movie. But it's out now, and it cracked the top 10 over the weekend, which is amazing. #1 independent movie in America. As far as that side goes, you definitely need to see this. It'll be life-changing. You just need to see this. This discussion is good, but it's never going to replace the movie. And it's an enjoyable movie as far as the artistic merit as well. Obviously, there's times where you want to just plug your ears, type of thing. But nonetheless, it was fantastic. It was well done. I was very pleased. I'd love to see more movies made like this, where they're not afraid to tackle tough stuff and deal with it from a real life perspective, and I think they really did that. And it's just simply called Gosnell. It's just called Gosnell, Gosnell. And
it did cut out. It says video unavailable.
Yeah, well, it looks like it's up here though, so I don't know exactly what's going on, but we'll just look. And by the way, maybe the last thing here, there was actually a GMS person who actually made a good point, and this is the last thing I want to address, and then we'll get out of here. He said, according to a lot of reports, black women are 3 times more likely than other groups in the United States to have abortions. And that actually is a good point about sort of what abortion how it plays out at the end of the day. Meaning, abortion kills more minority babies than it, as far as the proportion, than other groups. And this was a probably perfect example because it was located in West Philadelphia in a poor neighborhood. And, Margaret Sanger, the original vision, as far as she goes with Planned Parenthood, part of it was a eugenics-based vision. We'd, take out the human weeds. And so there is a result at the end of the day that destroys already vulnerable populations in the United States. And that's a true point that needs to be brought out. And we already talked about sort of the racist nature of Gosnell's practice, where he had separate rooms for white patients and black patients. Anything you want to mention that before we close out, my man David?
This is... I don't like politicians in general, but the idea that the politician who is insisting that it's a good idea for you to go and abort your baby when, again, the statistics I've seen 5 times as likely. I don't know the exact statistics, but between 3 and 5 times as likely that a black girl who gets pregnant will abort the baby as other races. So the idea that someone who is saying, "Hey, we need to make sure that you can stop all these pregnancies," is your friend, and someone who's saying, "No, we actually want more black babies in the world.
Right?
We don't want black babies aborted."
Right.
Or white babies or Latino babies. We don't want babies aborted, but the community that this would impact the most would be the African American community. If you think that the person who's saying, "No, don't abort your babies, don't do it, don't ever do it, have that baby," is somehow against your community and racist against your community, again, we've got some things backwards. Now, with that said, again, I don't like politicians in general. I'm just saying on that particular issue, very strange to me that the ones calling for the abortion of black babies are the good ones, and the people saying, "No, don't abort black babies," are somehow racist and against blacks. It's a very strange thinking there.
Yeah, so we encourage you guys, see this movie, support it, show the box office, in a manner of speaking, that we will watch movies like this. It's an important movie. And no, it's not on Netflix. It's only available in theaters right now. If you have to drive an hour to see it, drive an hour to see it. It's not going to be available in smaller towns, I don't think. But if you're within driving distance, do it. Do it, And then when it comes out in other formats, be sure to grab this, to support this. We want to see more stuff like this as far as this kind of filmmaking, and this was a great thing that they did in bringing light on a very, very dark subject. So that's my last word. David, do you have any last words about the Gosnell movie? This was a great, powerful discussion, I think, and I see the reaction in the live chat. I think more people are going to see this, and a lot more people are aware about this. So that's really what we hope to do in this discussion. So I'm glad.
Yeah, look up where it's playing. It was playing in 3 theaters near me. So this movie is out there, and kudos to the theaters that aren't deliberately making sure that it doesn't play at their theaters. So, this is a situation where reviewers aren't reviewing it. They'll review any little indie movie that no one's ever heard of, but not this. So this is a movie that's going to have to spread by word of mouth. So go there, take your kids, probably not little kids, but take your kids, take your family, take your friends. We don't plug a lot of movies because we're usually watching like Marvel movies and stuff like that aren't terribly important. But this is one of the movies that comes along is actually important and needed to be done.
Although sometime you and I should do some Marvel movie reactions, like if this wasn't happening, we might have done a Venom, one day if people are interested in that. But
you know what I really like. Well, the kind of movies I would like to do reviews on would be like movies where it's not making any important point, but you can get an important point from it. Yeah. Like Mad Max Fury Road. They're not making any important point there, but you can make an important point about it. Like, this is what happens when civilization breaks down and you lose the various structures that are keeping civilization together. And
if you're watching this video in the live chat now or later on, let us know in the live chat in the comment section. Would you like to see more movie reactions by David and Vocab. And in the future, we'd like to get John McCrae involved. He was originally planned to do this one. It didn't end up working out. But we'd love to have the Apologetic Avengers, the three of us, do movie reactions. I'd be with that because that feels like a good intersection of apologetics and cultural issues. Now, not all the time, but I would be down to do more things like that if people were interested in that. Obviously, this is a special, unique kind of movie, though. This kind of goes to a whole other level, transcends into another level of importance. But I'm glad we could do this. Subscribe to David. Follow him on Twitter, support him on Patreon, and please do the same thing for me if you can. But either way, see this film. And come back Thursday. I'm going to be doing another Backpack Radio Live. Still working out the topics. It might be something to do with Islam. I got my friend Al Fadi. We might be talking about how to engage Muslims on Facebook, for example. I got another topic in the works where I'm going to be doing a comparison of Joseph Smith and Muhammad. So we got some interesting topics coming up. And I also want to do a video producing where I expose this Joshua Holmes false prophet guy. I don't know if you guys have seen him around. Wow. So there's a lot of things kind of working on. And check out Act 17 Apologetics, David Wood on YouTube as well. That's all I got, David. Are you good?
Yep, we're good.
All right. Signing off. God bless you guys. Thank you for joining us today.